teachers of Reddit, what was the best lateness excuse you ever heard? I teach at a university, but this was from my high school years. My sister had just gotten her learner's permit that week and was driving to school for the first time, with me riding shotgun, required licensed 18-year family member, etc. We came up to a very sharp intersection, something like a 135-degree hairpin turn, and the light turned yellow. My sister asked me what to do, and I said to stop for it, not liking the odds of a complete noob driver trying to do that turn at speed with me on the outside. She stopped quickly. The Mercedes behind us didn't. Everyone except the Mercedes was okay, but it gnarled traffic up pretty badly for a while. I drove the rest of the way to school. The Crashita tailed the Mercedes, but just dented the back cargo door in the Blazer we were in, and waited in line as student after student checked and late at the office with there was an accident on the way to school. Our excuse was we were the accident on the way to school. Apostrophe. Student walked in and looked a bit shack. She told the class she had been hit by a car in a calm voice. English was her second language. Some people were confused and didn't think she had been a pedestrian struck by a vehicle. Not 5 minutes later, a police officer, paramedics, and the school nurse come in and usher her away. Apparently she got hit, got up off the ground, and sprinted into school. She had a minor concussion and we didn't see her for a week or so. Years ago I had a student come in who had missed the test the previous week. He said a while back he had been shot in the head and they were unable to remove the bullet, and the previous week it had started shifting and he was in the hospital. Showed me the scans of his head and everything. Also, right now another student's friend let me know that he is in jail for a few weeks and asked me if I could please not drop him as he wants to stay in the class. I'm a tar, and last semester a student emailed me saying he would be late to class because he got bit by a squirrel. There was also a different student who came to class with a baby turtle he found one day on time though. It's possible I was teaching a class full of misfit Disney princesses. Genuine real excuse from an older student. I'm gonna be late every day because I'm on house arrest, and walking to and from school I always have to stop at my girlfriend's and see my baby for a few minutes. I'm still trying to figure out why he had to be late, but maybe they put a time on his walks or something. Made me sad to see he had an ankle monitor and everything. My school starts as early as 7:30 for some students. By public transit 70% of my school qualifies for free/reduced lunch. It can be upwards of 2 hours to get to school. Those students have pretty legitimate reasons for lateness. I had one student a few years ago come late because his father had been murdered a few days earlier. I didn't expect him to show up at all, but his mom wanted him to go back to school. He just didn't get there on time. I had another late because her family had been evicted. Her parents had to work, so she was figuring out where to store their stuff. Not a teacher, but in the 3rd grade I had to give a presentation in social studies class. We got to read our presentations off of a piece of paper. My dog ate half of that paper the morning I was supposed to deliver said presentation. I was hysterical because I didn't think my teacher would believe the my dog ate my homework excuse. My dad wrote a note for my teacher, please excuse does her dog really did eat her homework? Apostrophe. I remember this from 11th grade. Our history class was right after lunch. The class started with a quiz, so everyone was quiet. This big guy comes in like 15 minutes late. He goes over to our male teacher and whispers something in his ear. The teacher repeats it, but a little bit louder, so that it was audible. And the teacher says, the cafeteria lady sold you an all-bread stromboli. Yes, the cafeteria lady had indeed sold him an all-bread stromboli with no meat and cheese in it. So he had to go back and ask for another one, sit down and eat it, which was why he was late for class. Not sure if this applies, but a teacher was telling us about how important it was to hand in our essays. Until the end of the week we had to hand 2 essays per week. While she was talking about how she wouldn't accept tardiness, there was this only one exception. When she accepted it on the following week, turns out a student was mugged on his way to school. He ended up losing his backpack with everything inside, including the essays, phone, wallet, socks, and shoes. The student ended up going to talk to the teacher barefoot and crying, telling her how he tried even to persuade the assailant to let him get the essays out of his backpack, but to no avail. Call-ins, but still. Forgot to turn off my effing heater, somebody stole my tires, and put my truck on blocks, and gotta find my damn dentures. Those things are expensive are my favorites. Edit, the second guy didn't even have a truck. Not a teacher, but this is one of my favorite stories to tell from freshman year of high school. Some kid showed up really late to class and told our teacher that he was in the bathroom and the trash can was on fire. We all sat there in disbelief and we all went to look out the door to see a bunch of smoke in the hallway. Then we see a security guard run out of the bathroom with a smoking trash can in his hands. Turns out some genius was smoking in the bathroom and threw their cigarette in a trash can full of flammable objects. Still was a pretty funny situation though. I work in South Korea and had a 5th grader say he was late because he caught a whale, which is a local euphemism for getting circumcised. Not a teacher, but my senior year of high school, I drove home on my lunch period because I left my homework on my desk at home. Halfway home, the elderly man in front of me veered off the road and drove into a telephone pole. I stopped to make sure he was okay and for police to show up. He wanted me to help push his car off to the side of the road, but couldn't understand that his axle was snapped in two and buried about 4 inches into the pavement. I overheard the conversation with the police, and he was definitely on some medication and should not have been driving. My teacher was cool about it and actually let me grab lunch from the cafeteria and eat in class too, since I was going to grab lunch on the way back, but couldn't. Not teacher, but student. Kid that was always ducking around rolled into class 30 minutes late totally disheveled. With wild eyes he claimed he fell down the stairs and blacked out. Teacher didn't believe him, but that ducker was covered in dust all over his back, so who knows. Had a classmate bring in her fender once. The professor just nodded and continued class without comment. Edit, a fender is part of your car, often heard in the term fender bender, to describe a mild car accident. I would give a fellow student a ride to school every day in high school, and he was never awake when I pulled up to his house to pick him up. I felt bad that I was writing his name as my excuse for being late every day and didn't want to embarrass him. I eventually resorted to absurd excuses that the office and principal seemed to understand as code for it being this kid's fault. Most of my excuses were something along the lines of UFO attack, grandma got ran over by a reindeer, Bigfoot sighting, car was taken, and had to wait for Liam Neeson to bring it back. Whatever I thought was funny each morning. Kid had a tough home life and principal agreed if I could get him to school every day it was okay if I was late. Edit, wow. I just want to thank all of you for all of the things you've said to me. I've had a difficult few days, and all of the nice things you've said really made me smile. I knew a guy in high school who came in 40 minutes late after lunch and said sorry I was at Subway and they got my sandwich wrong. There's one Subway in our school town and it was about 30 minutes away at the other end of the high street. He was already 10 minutes late by the time he started walking back. I'm a teacher. This year I have a student who comes in halfway through first period literally every single day. I finally got on his case about why I try not to pry, but my god. And he finally admitted that he didn't like waking up to an alarm. So he doesn't. He just eventually wakes up and comes to school. I needed to take a dump before I came to class, so I did. The bathroom was out of toilet paper. It took this long for someone to take pity on me and find me some apostrophe. I always figure that no one will question an excuse that involves poop. I'm a teacher and am known to cut things rather fine. When it comes to getting to class I'm always there on time, but just on time. I also sometimes purposely miss technically required but useless school events, assemblies, chapel, etc. I haven't been questioned yet by school leadership about my absences, but I figure if I am, I'll say I had diarrhea. No one questions diarrhea. In high school, 2 girls asked to go to the bathroom at the beginning of drama class, which is a 45-minute class. The teacher let them go. They came back with 5 minutes left in class, holding McDonald's bags. The teacher clocked an eyebrow and asked what took them so long. One girl sighed and said there was just a really long line for the bathroom. Me walks in an hour late when there was already a 90-minute delay for snow. Teacher, how can you be this late? Me, well you see, my garage door was literally frozen shut this morning, so I just kinda went back to sleep to give it time to thaw. Teacher, well alright then. I used this one as a kid. My dad ate my homework. In 7th grade for French class, I had to make a homemade French dish. I chose croissants as I was 12 and anything else would have been way too complicated. I made them with my mom after dinner, and sometime after I went to bed, my dad ate like 6 of them, which meant I didn't have enough for the class. So on the way to school, I had to stop at Dunkin' Donuts and replace the ones my dad ate. One of my teachers told that a girl came in late and claimed there had been a bomb attack next door to her home and that the road was blocked. We live in Finland, so the story was an obvious lie, except it wasn't. There had been a bomb at the police station next to her home, the only of its kind in decades. Not a teacher, but I always kept Rice Krispie treats in my backpack and gave my math teacher one every time I was late. I forgot one day when walking into class and got a nice loud ahem. I think you forgot to put something on my desk. It was ducking legit. Not a teacher, and this story might not fit here, but I feel it needs to be told. My HS only had 4 classes a day, so they were very long. We had this senior only economics class that was kind of a joke. Getting closer to graduation we all got senior writers pretty bad, but this one guy he'll show up for class, but then leave for 45+ minutes. We pretty sure he was smoking weed and having sex with his GF in his car. Anyway, one day he comes back to class with a Costco hot dog and soda. There was one nearby and just casually strolled into class. The teacher, who was a good well-liked teacher, sort of wigged out on him, but seemed like she was hiding that she was impressed. She gives him the grade school scolding of if you didn't bring enough for everyone ECT. He kind of confidently acknowledged her and took his seat. Next day, he disappeared again as usual. 20-ish minutes later he and his GF, who was not in the class, walk in with like 35 Costco hot dogs, condiments, and sodas for the whole class. The teacher just laughed and let it happen. It turns out there are lots of high schools on a 4-block schedule near a Costco.